Are you looking to learn how to be successful in your cloud architect career? If so, this video is for you. Hi, my name is Michael Gibbs, and I'm the founder and CEO of Go Cloud Careers, and I've been an architect now for 25 years. A network architect, a solution architect, a cloud architect, an enterprise architect, and even a business architect. And I'm going to tell you, it's the best career in the world. And I want to know that you can be incredibly successful in your architect career, whether it's a cloud architect, enterprise architect, network architect, or any kind of career you absolutely desire. I want the best for you. In this video, we're going to have Elonzo Coleman. He's an incredible cloud architect. He's also our chief marketing officer. He's going to interview me about how to be successful as an architect, and I'm going to share some of the special lessons I learned in my 25-year architect career. Look forward to seeing you in the video.
Hello, everyone. This is Elonzo Coleman of Go Cloud Careers. And today we are with Michael Gibbs, CEO and founder of Go Cloud Careers. And today we're going to be talking about what is it that makes cloud architects so successful. But before we do that, I'd love to hand it over to Mike for any other introductions.
So in this video, we're going to talk about how to become more successful. I've been in this career forever, at least it feels like it's been more than a quarter of a century. I've reached the most upper levels of the architecture careers, and I truly want to help you build the best architect career you can. So we're going to answer some questions. We're going to have a dialogue. If you don't know, I train cloud architects, and my graduates work at AWS, Azure, Cisco, IBM, Google, KPMG, Capgemini, Deloitte, Accenture, JP Morgan Chase Bank, Barclays Bank, BBC, and so many other amazing companies. And I want you to have the same success as our students. So in this video, we're going to have a discussion to help you become more successful in your cloud architect career.
That's awesome, Mike. Yeah, I definitely have a few questions about the success and what that pathway is to get there as a cloud architect. Over the years, we have done so much for our clients by transitioning them, regardless of any type of tech experience or lack thereof, into competent, capable, and successful cloud architects. So one of the things that I'd like to start off with is, how long have you been an architect?
Elonzo, it's actually been over 25 years now. You know, I used to practice internal medicine. I was a nurse practitioner. And sometime around 1996, 1997, I decided tech was for me. And I've been working in tech ever since. I've got to work with the world's largest internet service providers, designing solutions for them. I've gotten to work with some of the world's largest banks, some of the largest healthcare organizations in the world, as well as countries and their entire healthcare system. And I've loved every minute of it, Elonzo.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I when I first got on board and I found out about Go Cloud Careers, and it was just transformative for me as a professional and how I was able to convert the gap analysis of what I know, what I thought I knew back then, and everything else in between into becoming who I am today. So I think that transitions us really well into mentorship and what's needed to become that. So how important is mentorship from both the mentor and mentee perspective?
Elonzo, mentorship is critical. Now, the reason I was successful in my career is I had some really good mentors. And I started my career approximately 25 years ago. I didn't know anything, but I got my first job. And I found one of the vice presidents and asked him, could you tell me what it takes to become the best architect? Like, if you could hire the perfect architect, what would it be? And the VP was so excited to get a question like that. And he said, I'd like this, and I'd like this, and I'd like this. And I then asked, I said, that's what I'm going to develop, and that's going to be my focus from now on. Would you consider mentoring me, at least letting me check in with you periodically and see how I'm doing according to that plan and those things that you told me to do? And he was so happy. And realistically speaking, he took such good care of me. I didn't make the mistakes that most people make. See, most people make a mistake and they learn by their mistake. They make another mistake and they learn by their mistake. And they're kind of like a zigzag trying to get to the top. I didn't make any of those mistakes. 2 years later, I was a principal architect. And my career was like that, where everybody else's would do this and this. And it was because I had a mentor and I listened to the mentor. See, I knew I didn't know. I don't believe in having an ego. I believe in being very humble. And I didn't know anything at the time. I was a brand new architect with no experience. And I was happy to admit that to myself. And I was happy to admit that to my mentor. 25 years later, it's a completely different story. See, I come from a world where it takes 10,000 hours in a minimum in a small area to become an expert. And when you're brand new, that's just not the case. Years later, you become an expert. Now, I've now been a mentor for over 20 years to people. And I got to tell you, it's pretty exciting. I love taking someone that's, maybe here and getting them to here. We're at the point where almost every day someone says, Mike, I got my first cloud architect job after your program. I got to tell you, there is no better feeling in the world. When I was in healthcare, I got to save lives. And as a mentor, I still get to change lives. We get someone a job that's $150,000 to $300,000, sometimes more. And if that person was in a poor state in poverty before, and all of a sudden they have wealth, it changes everything. They can take better care of their family. Their kids can go to whatever school they can, and it's almost building generational wealth. And the feeling of watching people grow is just amazing. It's almost like having kids. And when people have their parents and they have children, they love their children and they watch them grow, and it's exciting with each milestone. Well, as someone that's been a coach and a mentor for over 20 years, that's a lot of people that are part of my family. And they work at every major tech company. And I love seeing them. I love hearing about this success. It's literally the best feeling in the world when someone says, Mike, I just got hired. So I love it. But I also celebrate every promotion one of my clients gets. And, I've had clients where they've been in a job, they're working hard, people like them, but they're not getting to their goals. And I've taught them how to negotiate a raise and get them an extra $100,000. It's exciting when they do that because, we've just changed someone's life. So I was the lucky recipient of a mentor. I come from healthcare where you don't graduate without having a mentor.
Yeah.
And you see it, you do it, you teach it to somebody else. And that's part of the mentorship. It's baked into our world, our DNA. I also come from the martial arts world where it's all mentorship. So I love being a mentor. I think that people who don't have a mentor are at an extreme strategic disadvantage. They will spend years of their lives making mistakes that they don't have to make if they find a mentor. Now, what makes a good mentor?
Yeah.
That's a really key issue. You can't just have anybody that's a mentor. You need to find someone that's extremely successful. The reason I started out with one of the vice presidents is I knew at that level the person already made it. And I also figured at that level they probably made a whole bunch of mistakes. They learned from their mistakes, and I didn't want to make those same mistakes. So I have this kind of rule when it comes to finding a mentor. If someone is not considered a principal, like a principal architect, if they're not a director hiring architects, if they're not a VP or a senior director, don't ask them because they haven't been successful themselves. They may be wonderful. They may be a great architect, but they're still trying to figure it out themselves. I want to go to the people that have already done that have been successful because they know how to be successful. And they have to be open-minded, non-judgmental, willingness to share knowledge, and have really good leadership skills. And all that falls apart if the person doesn't have good communication skills, because if the mentor doesn't have really good communication skills, you're never going to know what's in their head. And even if they're successful, you won't be because they won't be able to communicate it to you. So that's really the secret to finding and having a good mentor. And I believe the mentorship is one of the most critical things in being successful in your technology career, whether it's a cloud architect career, a solution architect career, or an enterprise architect career, or any career in general.
It makes a lot of sense, Mike. It's funny because I was thinking about networking and how no matter where the thought processes are going, your thoughts, your movements of what you want to communicate, just like communication, if it's not properly executed with like said networking, none of the stuff works. So it's very important that mentors are able to effectively communicate what their experiences have been so that it's translatable for the mentee to understand and apply it at their skill set so that they can grow and be the person that they want to be. And I feel that that's just very important. And I believe it also spans to, say, for instance, the Go Cloud Careers Slack community, where the newer students are under the wings of the more advanced students, and the most advanced are taking care of the middle students. So it's a continual iterative process of those taking the less experience under their wing so that everyone overall in our community can grow. So I appreciate you sharing that.
And that's a critical part of our culture, Alonzo, because to really be successful in your career, you have to have good leadership skills and bring other people up along with you. And that's part of career longevity, those kinds of things. So I want everybody that I train to be an extraordinarily good architect, to be hired, to have a high-paying job, but I also want them to participate in what I like to call the cloud architect community, make the world a better place.
That's awesome. So I would love to get to our next question, and it really segues into those are some of the ingredients of success: is having that mentorship, the ability to communicate on both fronts as a mentor and a mentee, so that you can get to that realm of success of principle and above, so that they can see how it works, where it works, when, and the subsequent ingredients to get there. So when it comes to being an architect, what does it take to be a successful one?
Now, that's actually a good question. And here's the thing. We have to define the architect's job in order to truly understand this. There are so many people that are either new to tech that misconfuse a cloud engineer or a cloud architect, or a lot of times we have architects that used to be engineers. And they still have an engineering mindset, which will keep them from being successful as a cloud architect, even though they become great techies in that way. The key to remember as an architect is our job is to make our customers successful. And what does that mean? We're dealing predominantly with publicly traded companies or larger organizations that need a cloud architect, and success means higher net income. Now, there are times when it's a rapidly growing company where we can count top line revenue as a success marker too, but it's really about net income. So if we can increase revenue without increasing expenses, we're increasing net income. If we can improve the customer experience for a business and their customers, that can tie to greater revenue, we're improving net income. If we can remove inefficiencies in their supply chain, which can make an organization produce their products better, faster, and cheaper, we're still enhancing net income. So the goal is business transformation. And that's really the key. We must remember our focus is how do we make our clients more successful with technology? So that means as follows. We must understand business, because if our whole point is to improve business and we don't understand business, we're not an architect at all. And it doesn't matter how great we are with tech. Like if we could code it or configure it, it doesn't matter if we can't transform an organization's business, because why else would they be buying the technology in the first place? I used to say this with my network architects that I were training, that it's not so somebody can ping an IP address. That's not what the whole point of the network is. It's so the business can function and is providing connectivity or plumbing for that function. So first is business acumen. The next is integrity. If you're going to design something for your client and you have to stand by it. And that means if the design is not right for them, tell them and just move on to another client. It also means if you say something is going to do what it's supposed to and it doesn't, you need to fight for that customer and make sure your organization fixes that problem. You may not be part of the team that's involved in fixing it, but you still have weight in the organization. And you do whatever you need to get anybody in the sales organization, the post-sales organization, the technical support organization really there. So that stakeholder management is really there. The next thing is being unbiased. We can't be what's called an evangelist in the industry. I can't say, Alonzo, I love serverless. It's really cool. Or I love BGP. We have to do what's in our best interest of our customer. And what works for customer A and what works for customer B may be completely different because they have different businesses, different customer desires, different customer access, different sales funnels and pipelines. So it all has to change. So we can't be biased. Now, how are we going to get judged as architects? It's been said, what's not measured is not done. We are measured by the amount of sales, for the most part, we actually design. As a rule, the architect job is a hands-off job. We design it, present it, and sell it, which puts us in the sales organization of most organizations. And how do you judge anybody inside of sales? How much they actually sell. So I've seen some extremely good technology professionals that were once some of the best and brightest engineers I've ever seen. And then somehow they manage to get an architect job, they get promoted internally, and then they can't sell anything. 6 months later, they're fired. And the key is, if you can't sell, you're not going to have any longevity in the field. Now, here's the thing with sales. Sales isn't a dirty word. For some reason, many that come from a strong tech background, they kind of get the feeling that sales is bad. Sales is taking a customer problem and finding a solution for that problem. That's sales. If I have a problem which costs me $1,000 a day, and you give me something that costs $200 a day and it keeps me from losing $1,000 a day, I bought your thing because it saved me $800 a day. So the key is sales is really completely based on solving customer problems. If you're not solving your customers' problems, you're not doing sales. Sending somebody 1,000 cold emails that says, buy my stuff, is not sales. That's what I like to call hammering. That's a hammer that's out there in search of a nail. And I get literally about 100 requests, emails to me each day trying to sell me something. But nobody even knows what my business is. That's not sales. That's what's conjured up in the bad sales rep. A good sales rep is honest and ethical. They find out their clients' needs. They design something that solves their clients' problems, and the cost of the solution is always less than the value that's delivered by the customer. That's true partnership. If you sell something for $1, but it delivers nothing, that's an expense.
Yeah.
If you sell something for $1 million and the customer gains $3 million in business value, that's a solution because they netted $2 million for buying your product or your solution. That's the secret, is sales. Now, leadership too, a really critical skill for the architect. And why? Nothing's ever done by one man. You know, there was a Navy SEAL that liked to say there's no John Rambos out there. It's a team. And while I love the movie Rambo, there are no one-man or one-woman wrecking crews out there that are designing billion-dollar architectures. It just doesn't happen. So the key is, with anything, if you're the primary architect, you have to lead the team and lead the customer into adopting what's best for them. So leadership skills are truly there. And lastly, and this is where most people get the tech piece wrong, design skills. Architects design, which are very different than building skills. So many people want to become architects and they do 1,000,001 cloud projects. Here's the problem. Building does not teach you how to design. And I'll give you a few examples. If I wanted to have a new hotel designed, I don't call a contractor, I call an architect. The architect designs the blueprint and then a construction crew builds it. Airplane pilots are expert at flying airplanes, you know, but nobody ever asks them to design the next airplane or design their next rocket. They look for an aerospace engineer or architect. And that's the key, is architects are designers. And so many architects want to build their engineering skills, which is somebody else's job. It's design skills. Now, how do you become an expert designer? It's all about how things work, not how to build them. So for example, a lot of people confuse hands-on experience with design knowledge. I'll tell you this right now, 99.5% of the population knows how to use Google Chrome or a web browser. You know what 99.5% of the population doesn't know? What happens after they type www.gocloudcareers.com in their browser. What happens on their PC? What happens with that DNS lookup? What happens when the router says, okay, the IP address that I need to receive is off of my subnet, and looks in the default gateway? And how does that default gateway proxy up that request? And how do all the routers on the way to the website, gocloudcareers.com, forward traffic? Now, once that traffic ultimately gets to the destination, how does the connection get set up to the web server? And then how is the data sent through the connection for every single message? That's what's going on under the hood. Now, if I want to design a web architecture, I need to know that. But it doesn't matter if I know how to go on a Linux machine and install an Apache web server. That's not what I'm dealing with. What I'm dealing with is the how it works, not the how to build.
Definitely an illustration. That is a very detailed explanation. And it also showcases not only what needs a cloud architect needs to be successful, but it also underpins the competency that they need to do so. So with that type of success, is that a vehicle for promotion? And what other ways can architects get promoted as well?
Well, yeah, Elonzo, it's something interesting you say. These skills are the key to the top of whatever you want it to be. You could be a principal architect, and it's a great job. You could also be a chief technology officer or a chief information officer, even a CEO. So here's the thing. Do you know what a CEO does? They architect the business strategy to be more successful. What does the chief information officer do? They architect the strategy to leverage information technology to make that business more successful. What does the cloud architect do? They design a strategy using technology to make that business more successful. So all leadership positions are architecture positions. Now, what does it take to actually get promoted? It takes a few things. First, a lot of it's based on your reputation. Do you deliver on what you say you can? If you sell a lot, but you leave a lot of customers dissatisfied, your name is gone, and unfortunately, you won't be promoted. Revenue is key. So you've got to have good sales skills, but you also, in order to get promoted, have to have a degree of integrity, a big degree of integrity. What kind of a taste do you leave in people's mouths? You know, you see people on social media talking about branding, 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 and I'm a big believer in branding, but your real brand is what someone's going to say about you when you leave the room. Is this person honest? Do they have integrity? Are they a hard worker? Are they competent? So that's the kind of thing is you've got to deliver. Now, the reality is, the sharper our tools are, the better of a job we can actually be. Where people make the mistake is they don't realize that certifications themselves are more kind of entry level. Here's a vendor's technology, here's how to configure it, which is really not things that architects do in the first place. But your digital transformation ability, how successful you are, and you can make your clients, that's the secret. So it all comes down to business acumen first. If I can understand a customer's business problem, and I can look at their balance sheet, and I can look at their financial statements, and I can see what industry analysts are saying about them, and I can talk to the chief financial officer and find out the financial pain points in that organization, and speak to that chief information officer and get an understanding of their technology systems. And I can speak to that chief executive officer and truly find their business goals, pain points, and strategy. Only now am I in the position to really drive any transformation. So we must have that business acumen. I can tell you early in my career, the first time I met a CXO leader, I didn't have what was called CXO relevancy. I didn't know what they cared about. And I was talking to them about tech. And this is about 25 years ago, and the account executive that was with me said, Mike, could you go pick us up something from the store? Because I was talking about BGP and it was totally inappropriate in front of a CEO. So we need what's called CXO relevancy. What does the CEO care about? The CIO care about? And we have to have that. If we don't have that, we're not going to be taken seriously. And the architectures that I work on are billion-dollar plus architectures. And at that level, you're dealing with the executives because only they can afford these things. You've got to be able to communicate to them. Now, I know I keep going back to sales, but sales isn't just selling a product, it's convincing someone to adopt your solution or the solution that's in their best interest. And all careers that are good and high-end that pay a lot have sales. If a doctor can't sell the patient into taking the medication that's going to save the life, the patient will die. Therefore, you can see if a doctor doesn't have sales skills, people will die. If a lawyer is taking good care of their client, and they can't convince their client to take a settlement when it's in their client's best interest on something they're going to lose, guess what? It'll be a bad lawyer.
Yeah.
As an architect, we need to sell. And who are we selling? A lot of people. First, let's think about how we be the best and design the best solutions for our customer. There's an African proverb that I really love, and it says, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. I have to sell people that want to work with me on my architecture team. Sales. Now, if I need 10 people to help me build or design this billion-dollar architecture, guess what? I have to take them from my company, which means take them from somebody else's manager for the next 6 months or a year. Now, if we're dealing with $200,000 employees and I need to take 10 of them for a year, I'm taking $2 million of productivity out of the system. So now I got to go sell their management on why I need them and justify why they're there. At the same time, while we're at it, I now need to coordinate with other vendors. It's not like we're going to do a cloud architecture and use only AWS things or only Azure things. We're going to be dealing with some AWS things, maybe some Azure things, some things from Palo Alto, Cisco, Fortinet, maybe Versa Networks or an AV Adrix. The list goes on. By the time you're done with any architecture, you may be dealing with 100 vendors.
Mm,
And
okay.
you've got to get them to play nicely. Now, that's a combination of leadership skills, sales skills, and stakeholder management. And a lot of it has to do with how do you make people feel. At the end of the day, people remember how you make them feel, not necessarily how cool your tech was. Those are the kind of things that most people don't think about that are really the key to getting promoted. Now, the data is staggering with regards to business acumen and people's careers. And the last thing I'll talk about, which is emotional intelligence. Business acumen is the secret. The average salary on salary.com with someone with business acumen is approximately $557,000 a year, which is pretty high in that top 1%. You're not going to see that for someone like me that just passed the CCIA exam, and that's it. Now, obviously, I'm a CCIA. I've got multiple master's degrees and MBAs, and I've studied business acumen forever. But when all I had was a CCIA and a CISSP and a CCDP, I was not at the top rung of the equation by any stretch of the imagination. It was only when I developed the business acumen to truly make my customers successful that I get these bigger and better jobs. And lastly is emotional intelligence. The data here is staggering. If you actually look at all factors, emotional intelligence is the best predictor of someone's career success. And the key is, let's say I've got a 10-person team, Elonzo. If the 10-person team is all working hard, the output is sky high. If I bring in a rocket scientist, a superstar, that comes in and is cranky and makes the other 9 people not do anything, now I've got a 1-person team, and it doesn't matter how good that person is. I have to get rid of that person. They have to be fired because they're going to damage the other 9 people. So emotional intelligence is key. How do you make your customer feel? How do you make your peers feel? How do you make your manager feel? Those are the things that people remember. And when people work on their business skills and their leadership skills and their sales skills and their executive presence, CXO relevancy, they're not in comparison with almost anybody else. It's almost like they're playing a different game. And you can literally see people get to careers that would typically want 10 and 15 years experience in a couple of years. And I love watching it. And that's one of the things I love to do with my clients.
Outstanding, Mike. You really gave us a lot of the building blocks of what leads to promotions for cloud architects. So you have that trajectory, you have the components, you have what is necessary to be successful. But what about the longevity? We're just like a cloud architect. They want to architect things that are going to be helpful for that business over a span of time, ergo longevity. So how does that equate to architects? What is the formula for being in the long game for a cloud architect's career?
First, it's about constantly educating yourself. Secondly, it's about focusing on your career. When I was in high school, I actually was taking a lot of college electronics classes because I really loved it. So much so that by the 3rd year of high school, I was actually teaching because I ran out of college electronics courses to take, and I was helping to teach in them. And, the teacher, who actually had a PhD in electrical engineering, he actually saw me going off in like 30 different directions. And he said, Mike, we're going to do a project together, just you and me. I need you to come after school. And he says, you see these 2 lights? And I said, yes. He said, one of these is going to cut glass, and one of these is going to light the room. I went, huh? And what he did is we focused the light, and one turned into a laser that could cut glass. The other actually could illuminate the room. And he said, Mike, the secret I have for you is focus. He said, find what you want best. Focus at it, run towards it, give it 110% of everything you can, and you'll be great. And I did that. But focusing. Now, where do people go wrong in this? If I've got an architect whose job is to improve business performance with their designs, and then they go off and study coding or DevOps engineering, they just learned somebody else's job. It's fine to know somebody else's job, but would a doctor really study to be a carpenter? Or do you think an airplane pilot would really study to be a landscaper? It's not going to be helpful in their career, but it's going to take away their focus. Yeah. And I want them to be like that laser beam. So focus is there. The next thing is really strong fundamentals. The deeper the architect's actual fundamentals, the more successful they'll be. So it was Bruce Lee, the man that said, I fear the man that practiced one kick 10,000 times, not the man that practiced 10,000 kicks once. Those fundamentals are everything. And as fast as technology changes, if your fundamentals are strong, you're going to see that they haven't really changed very much at all. In 1996, I worked on a cloud called Frame Relay. And basically, you would connect to this cloud, and they would build you a virtual connection to a destination across the cloud. Then around 1999, I worked on ATM, and it was another cloud that built a virtual connection. Then a couple of years later, I worked on a BGP cloud that was an MPLS cloud that would basically create a virtual connection between both sides. Then I worked on a VPLS cloud, which you would connect to a cloud, and it would build you a virtual connection. Fast forward 25 years, now you're in AWS, and guess what? They can build you a virtual connection from point A to point B with private link or something else. It's the same tech that we used 25 years ago. The names have changed. You know, I remember virtualization. We use it. The whole cloud is based on virtualization. The first people to develop virtualization was actually IBM in the 1970s. They were time-sharing mainframes. That was virtualization. Around 1999, VMware came up with the virtual machine. An AWS EC2 instance was invented by VMware in 1999. An Azure Virtual Machine was invented by VMware in 1999. A Google Compute Engine instance was invented by VMware in 1999.
Amazing.
It's all the same, you know. I can remember when the private VLAN was created, where you could have two servers and in the same VLAN, and they couldn't talk to each other. It was kind of like you virtualize a virtual LAN. Now we have a container, which is almost like virtualizing an operating system. So the key with this longevity piece is to have really strong fundamentals, because it'll enable you to keep track of all the changes, and that way you never become a dinosaur. And lastly, it's about doing everything you do with honesty, integrity, and ethics. You do those things, and you truly make your customers successful. You treat everybody right along the way. When someone calls you, you call them back, and you call them back fast. When someone sends you an email, you respond to that email as quickly as you can. Now you're known as the responsible person. And I got to ask you this, Elonzo. Let's say you had a problem. You call person A, and 10 minutes later, they get back to you. You call person B, and 2 months later, they get back to you. Who do you hire?
Think we're going to go with A, definitely.
Exactly.
Awesome, Mike. Yeah, I just thought about the longevity. You gave us a lot to consider. And I always think about once you're working up the corporate ladder, you always have to be conscious of using that integrity, because whoever you meet up there, if you don't meet them with the same positive energy, you can meet them down with that negative energy and end up in a bad situation that was counterproductive to who you are as a cloud architect. And I think that's just really pivotal to it. But you know, we talked about the success. We've talked about how you get promoted and the longevity that you need to consider to have that long game as a cloud architect. So that requires understanding a lot of different things from both the technical and the relationship side. So overall, how do you stay current and relevant as a cloud architect?
I like to read a couple of books every single week. In my world these days, I make 2/3 of my books about business or leadership or sales or something, and 1/3 about technology. But I'm constantly reading. But I have those really strong fundamentals. So that way, when the name is changed, you can look at the new things and say, oh, this was 95% the way we used to do it, but it's a 5% difference, and you can easily learn it. That's how you stay in the game. It's about understanding how things work. I like to say, you know, I remember the first car I had. It was a Nissan Sentra. Had to roll the windows down. It had these cloth seats, you know, but it got me to point A to point B. I turned the key. There was a steering wheel. There was an accelerator. There was a brake and an emergency brake. You know, a couple of years later, I had a Honda Accord. After that, I had a Volvo, and then I had a Mercedes. And you know what? Same thing. Maybe they were called a little different things. Maybe the seats were a little different, but they were still vehicles. They were all motor vehicles. That's really the key, is understanding the how, understanding the why, and not ever having the superficial certification level thing. For example, in an AWS certification, they'll tell you about an EC2 instance. They won't even tell you it's a virtual machine.
No.
They won't even tell you the kind of servers that it's on. You won't understand what's going on until you actually work with the original technology. And then you're like, okay, yep, been there, done that, same thing, different name. And that's the key. When you understand it, I mean, really get it, it doesn't matter where you're at. If you're a doctor practicing medicine in Philadelphia and then you move to Palm Beach, Florida, what's different? You're still dealing with people. They still have the same livers and kidneys and blood vessels and hearts and lungs. It's only the same.
Thanks a lot, Mike. Yeah, that it's tying it back in, tying the relevancy and remaining current. And it, no one's ever going to be able to do it alone. Like you said before, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And that requires a lot of support, understanding who your allies are, who your teammates are, and being able to uplift them while you all as a group come together to support the overall goals of the team. So we have one final question for you, and I think that sums up everything that you're talking about, and it's about how important it is for leadership. How important is leadership for to have that in the cloud architect role?
It is absolutely critical. When you're in a project with 10 people, let's say they're all in a rowboat together. If they're rowing all in the same direction, you're going somewhere. But if one person's rowing forward and one person's rowing sideways and the other one, you're not going anywhere. So to achieve anything meaningful, you have to be a good leader. Now, the good leader doesn't always mean you're in charge. I truly believe when it comes to architecture, we must practice situational leadership. And let me explain that to you. I'm leading an architecture team. I've got an enterprise architect, a big data architect, an IAM architect, a security architect, a couple of network architects, and a few cloud architects. So I've got a good variety of diverse skills, which is exactly what I want. Now, if it's focused on the network, I'm going to let that network architect lead that part of the architecture. We're all going to support that person. When that network architect is done, control reverts back to me. Now we're dealing with an identity and access management system. We all go and support the IAM architect until that's done. Then poof. Now it's security. Now the security architects. Now there's a big data environment. Let's get some data scientists and big data architects involved in that. Run that and it still comes back to me. So you're always going to have a dedicated leader, but that leader needs to know when to step forward and when to step back. So absolutely essential to get anything done. And one of the ways that I was actually more successful in my career, which helped me get promoted and helped me build some incredibly high performance teams, is as follows. In every major architecture I was on, I always needed between 10 and 20 people. In the beginning of that architecture, I asked every one of those people, what are your goals? This one wanted to be a manager. This one wanted to move into sales. This one wanted to be an architect. And I said, okay, great. Let me help you get to those goals. And if the person wanted to be an architect, I was sharing my architecture skills. The person that wanted skills, I was introducing them to sales context of mind and sharing some sales skills. I was trying to grow my team. Now, here's the interesting thing in that. At the end of my projects, and when everybody would give me the credit, I would throw the credit to my team and not me. That way, nobody saw me as the greedy glory hog taking everybody else's glory. They're going to credit me anyway as the leader. I shared that credit. I went to the other people's managers, and I got them high visibility, in many cases all the way to the CEOs of the tech companies that I work for, to help build their career. So leadership matters. Sharing the glory matters. Whether you're leading your client into the right solution, leading your team, or even leading your manager into the promotion that you want and then selling yourself into that promotion and that salary pay rise, it's still about leadership. So leadership is essential.
Leadership definitely is. I mean, I think I remember one of those old quotes, and it mentioned attitude reflects leadership. And when you have the type of leader that leads from the front, they're setting the examples, they're deferring to who has the better skill. And it's not about who's in charge, but it's rather who's able to enable these people to do the best, to be the best, to empower them so that overall everyone wins. That makes an exceptional leader. And thank you for sharing that. So everyone, that wraps up our questions. What we talked about was how long Mike has been an architect. We've talked about the importance of mentorship as a mentor and mentee. We've talked about what it takes to make, what does it take to be successful as an architect? What does it take to be promoted as an architect and a successful one? And what is the longevity? What is the recipe for longevity within a cloud architect career? How do you stay relevant and current as a cloud architect? And finally, we just discussed everything about the leadership components for a successful architect. Thank you so much for joining us. This is Elonzo Coleman, Chief Marketing Officer, and this is Michael Gibbs, CEO and founder of Go Cloud Careers. And we're looking forward to seeing you on the next one. Take care.
We hope you've enjoyed this discussion on how to maximize your cloud architect career. To learn how to become the ultimate cloud architect, or how to get your first cloud architect job, or even get promoted in your tech career, please attend one of our free webinars. The links are in the description below. We also have a tremendous number of free resources to help you in your cloud architect career in the description of this video. Lastly, please like this video and subscribe to this channel, and make sure to hit the bell to be notified of new videos to help you in your cloud architect career.